The ListView widget represents a scrolling list of items where each item occupies a single row. But if we want multiple items to be in a single row, we can use a GridView widget. The GridView widget is a scrollable 2D array of widgets. The most commonly used constructor for a grid view is the GridView's count constructor, which creates a layout with a fixed number of tiles in the cross axis. The cross axis being the horizontal axis in our case, since we want our bookmarks to be vertically scrollable. This number of tiles in the cross axis can be assigned as the value for the cross axis count parameter, which is the only required parameter for this constructor. The items for the grid view can be assigned to the children parameter. But similar to the ListView's builder constructor, we have GridView's builder constructor as well. Using this produces a scrollable 2D array of widgets that are created on demand. The major difference between the constructor for a GridView builder and a ListView builder is the presence of the required grid delegate parameter. Before we dive further into what a grid delegate is, let's create our GridView widget. Go ahead and copy the bookmark list widget, rename list to grid, and hence create a bookmark grid widget. Then replace listview.builder with gridview.builder. This shows us a warning that we are missing the required parameter grid delegate in our constructor. The list view is a linear arrangement of widgets. When implementing a list view, the default width of the list item is the same as the width of the list view. But a grid view is a 2D arrangement of widgets, which means that there can be more than one widget in each row of a grid view. Hence, there needs to be a way to control this arrangement of items inside the grid view. That's where a grid delegate comes in. A delegate is responsible for controlling the layout of the children within the grid view. It controls not just the count of the number of items in the cross axis, but also their size and spacing. The word delegate that we have been talking about so far comes from the sliver grid delegate class. When using a grid view's builder constructor, we need to define the delegate explicitly, while the grid view's count constructor uses the sliver grid delegate with fixed cross-axis count delegate implicitly. The sliver grid delegate with fixed cross-axis count is one of the most commonly used grid delegates, along with the sliver grid delegate with max cross-axis extent. For our use case, let's show 2 items in each row. Hence, we'll make use of the sliver grid delegate with fixed cross-axis count. Since we know that we want the cross-axis count to be 2. Change the body of the scaffold on the bookmarks page to use our newly created bookmarks grid widget instead of the bookmarks list widget to see the changes on the app. On hot reloading, we now observe that our list changes to a grid with 2 items in each row as specified using the cross-axis count parameter. So far, we have been using the bookmark list item widget to represent each item in our grid view. Let's clone this and make some changes to it to make the grid view items look a little different than the list view items. Once this file is created, replace the bookmark list item widget with bookmark grid item widget in the grid view. Let's close the tabs that are no longer needed. It would be nice to add some elevation to each item in the grid view so that they appear as a list of tiles. For this, we have the card widget from Material Design. This is similar to card view from Android. The card widget's elevation parameter allows us to provide a certain elevation to the widget being wrapped. To change the spacing on the cross-axis, we can use the cross-axis spacing parameter provided by the sliver grid delegate with fixed cross-axis count. To change the size of each item in the grid, we can use the child aspect ratio parameter. The child aspect ratio is the ratio of the child's width to its height, or in technical terms, the ratio of the cross axis to the main axis extent of each child. This value is 1 by default, and hence our grid view's children widgets have a square shape to them. Let's change this value to 2 for now so that our grid view looks a lot better. Let's add some padding to the grid view so that its children don't touch the edges of the screen. Since we only need to add a padding to the horizontal axis, we can use the symmetric constructor of the edge insets class and provide a value to the horizontal parameter only. Let's reduce the cross-axis spacing from 12 to 6 to keep the spacing a little more uniform. Further, to center the content of the grid view items, let's change the cross-axis alignment and main axis alignment of the column inside them to use the center alignment values instead. Now we can add a new bookmark to verify that our grid view renders the items correctly. Depending on the size of each item and the number of items you want to display in each row, you can play around with the values for child aspect ratio and cross-axis count.